Okay, we're going to be looking at some of the megalithic walls, structures inside of Cusco, Peru. Now, this is taken from a Forrester video, Brian Forrester. He runs hidden Inca tours, and they go down into all the South American sites and take people on tours of it and everything. It's pretty neat. Instead of doing the common tour, they do talk about all the mysteries of it and show you some of the neater things. And a lot of people that are into it are very much liking this. Also, people that weren't aware of it are very much liking this, and it's becoming quite popular. And hopefully, it won't get so big that he no longer is very personal with it. Because at this time and all the way up until now, most of these tours that they run like this have quite a bit of personality with the person at first there, like the old Daniken, whenever he would go on his tours, instead of him just showing up and talking to the crowd a couple of times, would actually hang around with everybody and stuff and just talk to you all the time, or a lot of the times, have dinners with people, things along that line. Anyhow, so if you're interested, you ought to check out his video, definitely. Here's what I want to show you is very similar to in Baalbek and a lot of the megalithic sites that run up into Anatolia and so on. You will see these rocks that are perfect cut all on the sides like a dice. You know how 1 and 6 are opposite each other, right? Well, every other number is perfectly, flat, but not necessarily level in all cases. But 1 and 6 haven't been finished in any way. But you can see whenever they go together here, they dive in. So in other words, if somebody was to just smooth this to flat, then the whole thing would have been flat like a marble floor. But they don't do these. They leave these knoblets that are all on the rocks. And a lot of people, including myself, believe that there are a lot of knobs, like you can see them faintly in a few places here, that were on each one of these rocks, and they wrapped ropes around them and perhaps up, under, and around in a carrying type fashion. And then they would carry these rocks where they attached them to a pole and then had 2 or 3 people in the front pole and the back of the pole and had them in there, or hooked them up together on a cart type thing that everyone would lift and walk with and so on. They didn't seem to sled too many of these, although the larger ones could not have been carried under a regular idea. You also see some of these are extremely small and thin, and then there's giant ones like this that are extremely long. And the anomaly with a lot of this is that the height of this stone is not really the height of the stones on this run right here. It's 2 or 3 inches taller. But all the stones down this run are about this height, all the stones down this run are about this height, and where they meet, they conjunct and they jot, like you might see right in here, where all these are a little taller and these are a little smaller, much like the ones that are up here. But they're all slightly different than each other. Whenever they do that difference together, rather than fixing the stone or doing it any other way, they meld them where they actually cut them out. It looks like it's been put together like marshmallows. We're going to close up on this. This is some 4K stuff here. But look at the closeness and the work of this. Now, the first thing I can note is that they're all extremely tight joints, but you also see where the bottom of this one is sallow. It's got a little bit of a convex curve to it, coming up to here, and then hitting this point and diving down again and going across, right? It's not straight. If it was straight, let me see, the end of my pointer, right about, right about there would be straight. And actually a little bit below that, maybe about right there, okay? And so there's that much of a rise in there. Now, listen to me when I say this. That rise right there, okay, is half on this rock, and then these rocks are sallowed to fit into that saddle, right? You can see this. So not only has this been worked especially for these to sit on it, but these are worked especially to sit on this exact curve. Do you follow the intricacy of what I'm just saying now? It's not, if you take and you mush marshmallows together, you can get this effect, but marshmallows aren't going to quite have this exact squareness. I mean, you're really going to have to compress the hell out of them to get it to do. And why is the outside just so random? There's a lot of colors in here too that you can see. It's mainly a grayish, slightly green, and has some iron oxide-ish rusty color into it too. But let's look down this wall, and you can see that pillow effect right there in places. Here's one of the longer rocks on the bottom, and the top one's there. And you can't fit a credit card through most of these. There are places, everybody says, oh, no, there are a lot of places you could fit slightly, maybe a credit card or a piece of paper, but you won't get it to fit much down the whole face, you know. And then there's inclusions in some of this rock, where if they picked that incredible rock and then faced it, why would they have this knob and a hole in this thing? This is some inclusion that was in the rock when it was made volcanically or whatever a long time ago. This is a granite. And now we can see a facing right here. And what's real strange about this facing is it looks like that they easily could have polished, not to a fine polish, this would have been just to a smooth polish on all of these stones. But there's only a few of them that actually show this. Whenever you see it too, it's still impregnated into the rock is this red ochre type paint that you can still see. It's on here in places. There's a good flick you could probably take off right there and get a good look. So many people have been here. There's a blotch right there. There's a lot of people have been through here and so on off of it. But that's a facing they could have been, and they're not faced well. Again, hopefully you've seen a lot of my videos on the stonework, and a lot of other people's perhaps, that show you these perfect faced stones on the sides, but the facing out and the facing in are just this inset rough little part. That where they dive together, it cleaves down and back up, and they make sure that is perfect. Later we'll look at a piece of it, but then there's that diving effect, right? See, here you can fit a credit card between those two, but here's one of those knobs that people all look at, and if you look down the face of it, it's not flat in any way, shape, or form, and you can see the lines curving of it. And in a minute we're going to look at some of this other work right here that he tries to claim this is a separate or different people mocking the first. I think it may be the first working on different ones, and then you can see the repair work and the other attempts, and you can see that's people that weren't quite of the same quality. Now these knobs, people say they hook a rope around them, but then that rope would just slide right off, right? Well, not if you tied that rope around it and under it and back up and around, you know, like they did on cargo ships and stuff. They didn't have a net, but then something very much like it. Or what if they had a wooden thing that they put below them that had a notch in it, and then that wooden thing had all this stuff attached to it and the carrying harness, and all these guys would pick it up like they used to do the princesses and so on, if you follow me. But all the seams aren't always perfect, and there's been earthquakes in the area, and right here you could easily fit a credit card through. And then you can see places like this where there's definite just gappage and a change happens. And then there's this basalt work that he kind of claims is a separate people because it comes from a different quarry, but I can't deny that this isn't the exact same type of work. And sure, they do some other stuff in top parts of walls with smaller rocks and things along that line, but I think it's still the same craftsman. And maybe it doesn't have the hand of the master on it, but these other guys are to build the interim walls and the secondary walls. Look how it smoothly goes around the edge. Now here's that secondary wall where they're just, it's not cycloptic, but almost cycloptic, where you can see the rocks are fit together, and they're choosing rocks that are slightly worked, if any at all, and just helped out. Like this one fit in there if this knob wasn't right, and they just do that little knob part. Instead of messing with this, instead of messing with that. But there's still little gaps everywhere, and everywhere there's a gap they try to shove a rock off into. But you can definitely tell this is not the same quality in any way, but probably the next step that we're talking about. Now the strange thing that people don't talk about is whenever you go down you can see this, and this doesn't even look like they tried compared to the last people. They tried real hard, and the first people were the ones that could do, right? You can even see a lot of these squared off blocks and even faced blocks thrown off in here. So where does that all come from? That's all remnants of the other stuff. And again, like I tell you, they tore the pyramids apart and built the Great Pyramid out of all the other step pyramids and mastabas they had built. They did that. And there are runs, huge runs here, a couple of 100 yards long in some cases. And as it comes to the corners, you can tell that at this corner, it used to run farther, but people have taken all those stones away except for the corner here. When you see this corner, look at how these are fit together and pillowcased and coming in on each other and encroaching. I mean, there has to be so many extra cuts on this rock to make this happen. To, you know, it's just the most oddity thing. And of course, you see right here next to it, just basically filled in with mud and mortar and semi-faced, semi-worked rocks. Just a jumble, right? And as we come around, one thing to notice, you see that these are much more smooth, but there's a lot of pitting on some of these. But look at how this one face that's worked is all but sheared off, just cracked off over time. And people have said, oh, that means that it was poured like concrete and done real fast and that they didn't set right and all these things. Well, this can't be concrete because it's made out of granite unless you can figure out some way to make Conca granite. And I don't think we're there at that point, and it's hard to believe these people were, although there was ancient stories and Merlin can make stones float and everything. So you can see that change right there to right here, and this isn't the same rocks. It's not the same entity. Here it is from the other side looking out. And the corners are still held there, and these multi-story houses that are up there put up on top of this. And a lot of the door frames and easeways that would take you into a new area are done with this. And there we are again with those multi-bent rocks. Look at this megalithic work, cycloptic stonework here. How it all fits together, so lock-a-blocky. This is a famous place right here. I think I've caught it about right. If we look, this is the snake that they talk about where it runs here and down and, whoops, I went on the wrong stones, here, 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 here in the face. I'll show it in a minute. And this is in an alleyway, basically, still that's there, but look at all the knobs that are on all of these, and some of them have been smoothed off to where you don't see them anymore, taken off. Like, oh, we don't need them anymore, so we won't show them, but then other people didn't do them, and so it's almost like it's unfinished in some way. You know, what happened? Did the people that came to build this get everybody sick? And then, I mean, I don't know, you know, what caused this to be like that? Look at the workmanship in making these. That doesn't fit together perfect anymore. You can slide a credit card in there in a heartbeat, but you can't here, and that's kind of the point. And then you can see it change. And some of this stone is just extremely pitted, and there's even streams, like you can see right through there, this golden color. And other ones are extremely green with little blotches of green all in them. And then going up next to the next one, there's a lot of red and green in it, but primarily all from the exact same source. Even whenever they're pulled apart like this from where the earthquake had pulled them apart, I don't know if I can catch it just right, but what we're looking at right here is all the way down a foot into the hole. And how smooth that is all the way up that edge. We're looking slightly down this edge and cutting off that one, but you can see it. See if I can catch it again wherever we get down in this cornered area here, and it wobbles back and forth. And you can see that we're looking inside of there and how they actually fit together, and that they are perfect on the inside part and all the way up to it, but then it just rises up to an unfaced, just beaten finish. There we get a good look right down into it. And you can see how smooth that is. It's not polished. It's not polished. It's that one step less. Like you see concrete, and you can polish concrete like usually in your garage it's polished, and then out there it's not. This is out there it's not, but it's that state. And yet out here we never even tried to get close to it. And a lot of that Baalbek type stuff, you'll see a rim about this wide right here that's almost faced, almost this good right here, and then it just goes to those little pillows all over it. The Temple of Sargon and all of this ancient cycloptic work. And you try to find some tourist that's gone there and take some good shots and so on, and because this man is definitely all about it, it's a great way to utilize somebody's work. Look at the scalloping. Hopefully this shows up here. You can see this scalloping, and this is supposedly, it's just like Egypt, where they've got those areas where it's scallop, 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 scallop. This pillowing effect, though, and the problem that we have with it is it looks almost machined. It's just running right down, and you know, it looks like somebody just took scoops, you know, something, and just scooped it off of there like it was styrofoam in some way. And you can see all these scoops down on this too, and this look. Scoops, whoops, oh, didn't quite catch it good, but scoops all through there, scoops all through here. They're all through. Now, a lot of stones won't show these scoops at all. We haven't seen it any until now. And then you're over here, and all of a sudden you're seeing all these scoops, and you're like, you know, what's that all about? It's just an oddity. Now, there's some of those protrusion in your nipples right there, and it's got two, not one on it, and you can tell you could probably harness that thing up real well. And also look how it's set out just slightly from the other ones, and you can even see it right there, how it sits out slightly like it's been kicked out, but out here it doesn't really look like it. This wall's gone through hell a long time ago and held its place. It worked. It lasted through earthquakes they were having. But you can see the finished edge right where that went in together. Here's one of those other big nipples that are sticking off in these rocks. And looking down the face of the rock, it's got a lot of warble to it. You can see where that ends in the other repairs and how they had faced that rock. And now you can see too that whenever this comes in, it's not perfect in a lot of these rocks, but this is perfect to match that rock. If you look at that rock, it goes up and it goes back, but also inside it's a little bent in. So this comes up and goes wonk and goes back at the top of it, and it's a little bent in. As opposed to fixing that and fixing this, or if this goes in too much, who cares? Just make this straight. No, it was all done like that. But yet these people that came above it here just kind of threw a bunch of rocks in there in between and filled it in with mud and mortar and clay. That's all that is right into there is mud, mortar, and clay. And here you can really kind of see that edging where they really went through the trouble of squaring this off and making sure that's exact. And then from this point, the guys are like, okay, and just F it, you know, just, you know, we don't need to do any more. In fact, that gives it its texture and its character. So this is another example where you can see these all leveled in and how they fit tight together. But this edging in the back doesn't. That's okay. This does. And then how this dove in and then went in, so this rock was easily able to be pulled out, and instead they put another rock that just kind of fits in there, and they shoved it in there, put some mortar around it and a few rocks around it. So this is later repairs, definitely. Hopefully you can see how green this rock looks versus the other part we were looking at too. So we're working through an area of quarry. It's a little different, and you can see some of the green rocks in here mixed with the gray. And some of these rocks are pseudo worked, you know, not really worked much and just thrown in here in the jumble way, whereas before they were definitely smoothing them off and making that pillowed effect. You can see these knobs sticking out here. That's that same double rock we were looking at earlier. And there's a dent in that one that seems to be for a purpose. It seems to have been made in that way. So now we're going to look at 3 steps here. What you see on the right is what they've done with this type of work, which was a wall that was only this tall, and they put an extra wall on top of it, and this is all jumbled. This is pseudo-cyclopean, where you can see it does kind of honeycomb fit together, but not so damn good. Then what they did was they plastered the whole thing and impregnated the whole wall in with that clay mortar and then sealed over it and did a stucco type, right? So here's the way that they've made it into modern, and some of these people's walls are the old Cusco walls. And then you can see that, and then on the left here, that workmanship. And here we have a real good example of it, because this wall wasn't brought out enough to where you can really see how finely that side is worked right there. That, if you were to put the whole block like pretend it was the size of a dice in your hand, on a flat sander and held it for a while, you'd get a smooth piece that was about like that, right? Hint, hint. And yet it comes out of there in this perfect form, and then right up here it just goes to crap, and there's some little blobbles on the bottom of it. Well, you make it square, so why isn't the bottom square? Well, because this one's top isn't square, so we have to make it on a slight angle. This is an obtuse angle going down, and then we do that saddle dippy dip, and then over here it saddles back. Well, why? Well, they lean on each other and they help hold each other up and all this. Wow, they're going way, way out of their way and over and above, and it just still blows me away to this day why somebody would go through that amount of trouble. And then you can see the people that came after couldn't even go through a good shot at it. Some of these are flat-faced, and they're putting all the flat faces out and all the other crap in. It's not the same people. So here is 1, 2, the repair. Again, we'll look at it real close. That's just all sealed in. This is pseudo-Lycopian, like the second phase, right? And maybe it's just to help make the other phase. You can see how people have mortared it in, the whole run there, but then how also these buildings on the left are all utilizing this ancient wall, right? Inca Roja, or Roca. The Inca rocks. Oh, cool. Check out the little dog there. He's got his little outfit on. You can see all of these knobs through here, and look at this knob that's right here. You can see how that one sags down. You can easily get a rope over it. You can easily get a rope over one of these, and it'll hold. It won't pull off. Who's to say these knobs didn't have a whole hang down on them before that looked like this on every one of them? But then you'd have to think somebody came in and took the hang downs off of them and just left it like this rather than just making them all flat. Or were there a bunch more of them and they did make them flat, but they're eroded away now? And people have looked around and tried to find a bunch of them, and they go, no, there's no signs of them on like 45% of the rocks in here. 70% of the rocks over here don't have it, but almost all of them have it over here. And this also, see how this bubbles out so bad? This is about the worst you'll ever see, whereas just right down here, there's an in and out of 4 inches maybe of, in and out, whereas this thing sticks out 1.5 feet all of a sudden. And this is over that quite a bit, and it's just, it's strange that they utilize in a few different ways. Now here's that one part, see that looks like a panther, right? This is where they shown where they made a panther in the rocks there, and it's got that one stone I was showing you before, and then here's the snake, and what shows the snake is this eye that's here. Now this is one of the knobs, right? But problem is that all the knobs are on the bottom of all of them, and this is the only one that had the extra knob there. And somebody just noticed it, like, looking at cubes one day and said, wow, if they were a different color, you'd be able to see it. Was it ever painted in ancient times? Maybe it was. I mean, we know all the ancient Greek statues pretty much had paint on them. You don't see it. There's the head. It comes down to the neck, and that's the foot right there, the front of the foot, and under the belly it goes all the way back here, and then that's the back foot, right? And those both look like feet, like you would draw them, so they're like, okay, that's that. Here's the snake, and I want to show you that there's the little snout. And why'd they make that funny rock that's huge and all of these cuts that are on it, and then this rock here, the snout type thing? Well, this is a snake, and there's that eye knob that's pretty much all worn off, but not quite, kind of rounded perfectly for it. Also notice how this stone is cracked now. You see that little crack that's in it? But now we run down the length of the snake. If we stay on this run, you can see how it runs all the way down, bobbles down, and then back up and makes the tail. And you also find a couple of those at Sacsayhuaman. Now, he tries to claim this is 2 different people doing this work, and this is one of the ones I can say, no, I think it is the same. Because here we have the smooth edges and everything, but then the dive in, and here we see the smooth edges and the dive in. What we're looking at is basalt versus granite. But look how this is set in. Everything's set in perfectly, so it fits that rock. you know. And this, it's all, yeah, it's that same idea and that same style. Those people knew the same craftsmen. The masons of the first part were there for that part, and you can see it at the top here too, where the masons of this part were probably there. It just seems to be there at a different quarry. Did they run through bad veins of it? Did they start getting at different areas? Did they decide to use a different color and maybe make the way it looked a little different? It's entirely possible, but slightly different colored stone too that are thrown in some of these. This has a pink vein running through it. I don't know if you can see that, almost a pinkish purple, right? And then down in the corner it's more green. Here's some more of the more green look, and a real up close look at this near vitrified type stone. And see how those knobs aren't really defined? You can see how this whole piece has just come off. That apparently this all wafered off. Look at that seam there. More wafering. And green right next to red and green. Makes you wonder if you polish it, if you would see these colors run through it, and I'm sure you would if it was all polished. In fact, just if it rains, it probably looks different. Here's one side looks one way, one side looks the other way. You can tell over here they've tried to face the faces real good, but the inside faces are not any better, and they sure as hell aren't fitting together well. This is not very impressive compared to the other. And you saw that guy taking a picture over there. He's not taking a picture over here. Well, the difference is where the picture should be kind of evident. It's the change that shows you, well, why, man, look at these people doing this type of work here. Two kinds on each other, rose on top, green on bottom. And again, that inset stone there, for no damn good reason. All of these extra cuts in the saddles that are in there. And then you find where people have taken remnants of other walls, of the basalt and the other walls and some other rocks, and just thrown it all together. So this is later reconstruction, probably Spanish reconstruction of the area and so on. And so neat as hell. And again, these knobs and stuff that are there, I don't know, quite interesting. And you can see all the rebuild here out of all these other rocks where they kind of took a shot at it. And the amount of stone etching and vitrification kind of activity that's been on these, and erosion is the word I was looking for, shows that maybe it's been here a whole long time. The strange thing is there's a lot of them that are still fairly smooth and just pitted some, and then other ones are a little worse. And then what we were looking at after that, or way before, was extremely pitted. And is that from that long before, or was it just so roughly done? Anyhow, let me know what y'all think down in the comments there. Like, share, and subscribe if you're not already. And hey, supposedly there's some new thing on the click and the bell notification, so make sure you click on that so you get all of my new videos that come out. And check out Brian Forrester's channel, Foerster, not Forrester, but Forrester. Like, share, and subscribe. Peace, guys.